welcome to the New Year's Eve edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where we've got something really weird for you today, I think. The puzzle on the screen is called Outside, and it seems to be a castle wall variant by Stefan Liu. I think I have done a puzzle by Stefan on the channel before, but this comes from the website gmpuzzles.com, which is an absolutely wonderful place to visit if you like handcrafted puzzles. It's sort of the brainchild originally of Thomas Snyder, and I think Circa Nurecli is involved in it now as well. And basically every day they have a new handcrafted puzzle, and this puzzle apparently appeared a few weeks ago as a Sunday Stumper, which means I think it's like the hardest puzzles that they publish over there. And the reason that this is interesting, we got an email about this puzzle recommending it to us, is because Thomas Snyder, this is Thomas Snyder, the 3-time world Sudoku champion, former world puzzle champion, definitely, if you ask me, the most intelligent person I'd ever met in my life, it would probably be Thomas. He is an absolute, a genuine genius, a transcendently clever person, and also a friend of mine, someone I hold in the fondest regard. Anyway, Thomas apparently has commented somewhere to the effect that this puzzle is the only one in recent history that's taken him longer to solve than the expert time. So if you've ever gone to gmpuzzles.com, one of the really nice features over there is that every puzzle has, I'll get this wrong, but I think it's a grandmaster time, and the grandmaster times are always ludicrous, and I presume they're normally set by Thomas. So that's how fast Thomas has solved the puzzle. Now, even if you are a world puzzle champion watching this video, even you might not beat Thomas's time every time. I mean, that is how good Thomas is. So the Grandmaster times, they're crazy quick. Next, you've got the Masters times, which are also very, very good. I mean, they're sort of world-class times, but maybe not Thomas-level times. And then you have expert times, which I think is designed to say, are you a pretty good solver? Do you understand this puzzle quite well? Well, then, if you do well, you'll beat the expert time. So Thomas always slays the expert times, but apparently on this puzzle, he didn't. And the expert time for this puzzle? 45 minutes. So what Stefan has created here, I do not know, but it sounds monstrous. And the Grandmaster time for this puzzle is 15 minutes. That is a big differential. That is a weird differential. So I don't understand that for a moment. But anyway, we're going to try this puzzle, and this will probably be the best chance we've ever had of actually beating Thomas fairly in terms of finishing a puzzle, because for most normal mortals, finishing a puzzle faster than Thomas Snyder is something you could only ever dream of doing. So I'll read the rules of this one in just a moment. Although it's called a castle wall, it's a weird version of castle wall because there's no cells inside the grid, but we'll come to that in a moment or two. I don't have many announcements today. Let me just wish you all and your families and friends the happiest of New Year's this evening. I don't know what you're all up to. I hope it's watching Cracking the Cryptic videos, but whatever it is, have a good evening, and all the very best from Mark and from me for 2023. Let's hope it's a year full of puzzling masterpieces. Happy birthday today. I suppose is it a difficult day to have a birthday on New Year's Eve? But Sana, your partner Crystal, wrote to us and said it's your birthday today. So Sana, it might be Sana actually. It might be Sana, I'm not sure. I can't tell. I'm in debate. Sana. I'm going to say Sana actually. Sana, I hope that you have a brilliant day, and I hope that you can celebrate with chocolate cake. Tomorrow is a huge day in the world of puzzles for a different reason, which is that it is the 1st of January, and that means it is Patreon Reward Day, where we have got, as you know, if you're a patron of the channel, we've had this Phistomefel Sudoku hunt ongoing. So many of you have been loving that. So many of you have managed to solve it. It's absolutely stunning. I'm going to read some names in a moment. But tomorrow, for the monthly reward, we have this hunt, Numeric Alchemy by Jay Dyer. Now this, the quest to turn digits into gold, I think we'll get less entries for this. Well, no, I think we'll get more entries for the competition. To enter the competition, you have to solve 5 of the 16 or 17 puzzles. I think we'll get less entries of people who solve all the puzzles. If you do solve all the puzzles, you get a shout out on the channel, because it's there are some head wreckers in there. They're all incredible puzzles. It's the most amazing reward. Thank you so much to Jay. Anyway, that's coming 4 o'clock tomorrow UK time. Do check it out. You'll enjoy it. And very well done to the following people who solved the Phistomefel hunt. I'm going to be reading names on the Phistomefel hunt for a few days. So well done to Liam Loudram, Jochen Vermeulen, Logan Nydert, Lane the Pain Train Spencer, Daryl Gilbert, Bill Allsop, Luke Bovard, Dylan Bianchi, Phil Schaefer, Anna Killian, Nathan Cox, M Nasty 2, Robin Lederer, Stephen Cole, and Jack Ty. You all sent in the correct entries, and that means you did awesomely. Now, let's have a look at what Stephen Liu has managed to create. I'll read the rules of this loop drawing puzzle. We have to draw a single closed loop without intersections or crossings, passing through some empty cells in the grid. Okay, we've got a lot of empty cells. We have got, how big is this grid? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It looks square, doesn't it? So let's say there are 121 cells. So we have to draw a loop through some of the 121 cells. Cells with arrows and numbers are not part of the loop. Good. The numbers and arrows refer to the total sum of the lengths of loop segments in the given direction. Brackets. An equivalent way to understand these values is to count the number of cell borders crossed by the loop in that direction. Right, so that is classic castle wall rules, although normally these clues are not in the edges, they're normally in the middle of the grid. And they're normally in different colours actually, now I think about it as well. Normally you get black and white clue cells in castle walls, and the black cells have to be outside the loop and the white cells have to be inside the loop, so there's a different sort of constraint. Here all these clues, I think fairly self-evidently, are outside the loop. And so let's just understand what this 3 clue is saying. It's saying that the loop crosses a boundary 3 times in this direction. So if it did that, say, it could do that, and then it could move up somewhere else. Oh, I see. And so look, well, then we're going to have to obey the vertical rule. So this 1 is then saying we're doing that, so we could do that. Oh no, that's broken, because then I've run into a 0. I wanted to go that way, but that's not going to work. Let's go maybe like that. Will that work? I might have just broken it. I'm not sure, but I'm just... Ooh, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go down 3 now. You can see how difficult this is going to be to do. I've failed utterly to draw a loop, but what I've been trying to do is to just cross the boundary the number of times I'm allowed to by reference to the horizontal clues and the vertical clues, and I was already very much getting it wrong. Do have a go at the puzzle. A chance to beat Thomas. It's amazing. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Oh, and by the way, how am I drawing these lines in the grid? If you are in the software and you're thinking, well, I don't have that option, if you click the cogwheel on the right hand side, it brings up this thing. I always have my pen tool enabled. It is the pen tool option that allows you to draw these lines. And also if you click in boxes, you can do this. And if you click on the boundaries, you can do X's. The wonderful software that Sven has developed for us allows all these things. Anyway, now I get to play. Let's get cracking. I think I've already said that. And the way we're going to get cracking, I presume, is to look at row 2, because we're never allowed to cross a cell boundary in row 2, so we can instantly exify everything in this row. So let us do that. And then I can see other things actually, because now I'm looking at the 1's clues in the top row, and I think if the loop ever entered this cell here, you can see it's impossible, because then the loop wouldn't be allowed to go another. If it goes again, this clue here should be a 2. So I don't think the loop can now ever enter this cell here. So that gets exified. Same reason that gets exified, that gets exified, this gets exified, this gets exified. So now we can say what exactly? Well, here's an interesting point. I don't think the loop can go up there, because if it does, it has to go both cells, and then it has to turn left, and then it's going to cross 2 boundaries, 3 boundaries before it's able to turn at all, and that's going to break that clue. So actually, this top right cell is out of bounds, and therefore, because we're having to make a loop, we can't come into this area at all, because we'll just create a line if we do that. So all of these cells are out. So far, we're actually making good progress. But I would hasten to add, there is no way that someone like Thomas has not spotted everything I've just spotted in much less time than I've just spotted it. Right, so hang on. This cell's out of bounds. So every time I sort of come into the top row, I'm coming via a line that's at least 2 long. Yes, okay, that makes sense, doesn't it? But now it's going to get complicated, I think. Because there's no guarantee in the top row. You know, if we knew... Well, if we knew that was a line segment, then we would be able to complete this clue, because in turning right, we then couldn't turn down. So we'd complete that clue and then we'd turn down. And that would be really useful, actually, because then we'd have completed this clue and this clue. And sort of completed this clue, because we can't go any further downwards. We've already cut 2 borders in columns 2 and 4. We now know we're going to have a line segment in one of these positions, which is going to give me one of these 2 clues sort of border cuts, and then we're going to have to also cut a border as we move this line. So if this was right, we wouldn't go any further. But I don't immediately see. It looks to me like the loop would then go that way. And then it could go all the way down here. Oh no, hang on. I'm not actually sure that does work. Because the problem I'm seeing there, I think we have to go that way to get access to this 3. But I think this loop segment might be a bit stranded, because whichever way it now ducks and dives, if it goes this way, it goes down 1. If it goes that way, it goes down 1. But then its next move takes it back into this column or this column, because it can only go 1 this way. So I don't know if that does work. If it goes that way or that way, it then can't turn down, so it sort of gets stranded. But that's that's bifurcation. I don't like doing that. I didn't mean to do that anyway. What I was going to say before was that we don't know whether it goes up there, although maybe it doesn't do that, or whether it does something like this and like this. That would complete the 2 clue. That actually looks quite plausible in terms of the 2 3s. You know, we have enough loop segments to enable that. Then that would turn, that could continue. Oh yeah, that's horrible. That can go. I think that's very possible. Or it can come up. Well, it could do that actually. Okay, so this is not getting me very far. This is why I probably won't beat the expert time, even though Thomas has obviously had a ricket on this. Oh dear, dear. Okay, so I have done a puzzle, a castle wall, on the channel before. that was by Ken Endo that had this sort of setup, where all of the clues were outside clues. Or maybe I didn't do it. Maybe I have a vague recollection that there was a speed solve by one of the top Japanese solvers that was sort of mind-blowingly quick, of a Ken Endo puzzle, and we featured something about that. I can't really remember. It was a couple of years ago, I think. Yeah, I think it was a couple of years ago. And actually, what I'm remembering from that video is not very helpful here, because I think in that puzzle, I'm trying to remember who it was who did the solving. I think it was Ectoplasm, which is the pseudonym. I'm not going to remember who it's the pseudonym of. But anyway, I think what they were able to do was to extract some information from big clues on the left-hand side and big clues on in the top. So they were able to sort of say, okay, imagine that was a 6 and that was a 6 or something. They were somehow able to deduce that there was a crossroady type constraint in the grid that enabled them to deduce there was a corner of the loop at the junction. Now, I do not think that can be relevant here, because we haven't got any clue. Well, all the clues are tiny. It's more likely here that you could rule... I don't think I can do it, but I was just wondering out whether I could rule out a corner like that. No, well, I can, actually. I can, having dismissed that as nonsense. I can rule out the corner because of the 2-1 clues that sort of juxtapose. So if we do have the loop entering this bottom left corner, the loop has to turn, and then it will have to go up because of the 1 clue. But because of the 1 clue in the column, it must also go up, and it forms a loop that is too small, because we know that the loop goes into row 1, so it's not nearly possible for that to be the loop we're trying to create. So this cell is out of bounds. Yeah, okay, so it's more likely to be stuff like that. So maybe where the 1s interact. Do we have... No, that's not where a 1 interacts, that's a 3. Do we have a way of doing that? No, is the short answer. Okay, so that's not how to do it. We could... Looking at this corner now. I am trying hard, I promise you. Or maybe I am meant to look at the top of the grid and eliminate these. I did think I could eliminate that option, but I'm slightly struggling to believe that will be required. And even if I could eliminate that option, I definitely can't eliminate those options, I don't think. I'm just going to mull that for a moment, if you don't mind. Just let me think about this for a second or two. I mean, I can see that has to turn, and it does, so it would have to turn there. But I don't know how many it goes. This feels weird, this puzzle, actually, now I'm thinking about it. It feels like it's too open. There's too much latitude. I don't understand how you even start it. There's not something going on with the 6, 10, 20. 20. Sorry, I know I've just dried up. I'm just mulling. I've added up the clues in the top row. I got 20. Which, oh, good grief. Oh, hang on. Now I begin to see, do I? 11. Oh, good grief. Right. Okay, this is really clever. Wow. Okay, I have just eliminated this option. And I start to see how somebody could do this puzzle quickly. Oh, this is weird. Right. Let me explain what I just did. I added up the clues in row 0. And I got 20. I'm just going to double check that. I think it must be right though, because it is 20. Because it seems very plausible to me now that this is relevant. If you add up the clues in the first column as well, you get 20. But imagine a loop. We know that the loop visits row 1. We know it visits this row. There's a 2 clue. We know it visits the bottom of the grid, and we know it visits this column because there's a 1 clue. So there is a loop in this puzzle that visits. We don't know where it visits them, but it visits each extreme border of the grid. So, how many cells, how many border cuts does this loop end here indulge in to reach its friend down there? Because it's not going to, this loop segment is not going to join to that one, because then this one will have to join to that one and the loop will cross, which is not allowed. So in order for this one to join to this one, how many border cuts? This is an 11 by 11 grid. So in order to get from here, or from this one, to the bottom of the grid, we must cut 10 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So in order for that one to get to that one, how many border cuts does it need to do? Well, the answer is, again, 10. In other words, these clues are telling us that the loop never doubles back on itself. Because if we did that, for example, then we haven't taken 10 cuts to get from here to here. We've taken more than 10 because we've gone 1, 2, 3, 3, and then we've gone up again, and then we've got we know we've increased from 10 to 11 is what or maybe it's 12. Maybe we've gone to 12 because we've doubled back on ourselves, and therefore we've introduced 2 elements, two line cuts of inefficiency. Yeah, it's going to be 12. And that's not going to work. So the fact that these are 20 and these are 20 means that the loop that we have to make is a totally efficient loop. It would be quite funny. I don't know if it can do this. I was going to try and draw almost a circle, to something incredibly regular like this, because it's going to be something like this, and we know that because it must be efficient. So as this one moves down to this one, it must only move east and south until it hits this border on the right, whereupon it is then allowed to go west and south until it reaches the bottom border, where it's then allowed to go west and north until it hits the left-hand border, where it's then allowed to only go east and north until it hits the north-hand border. It can never do anything else. Now, what that means, I'm not quite sure, but I'm absolutely sure that it eliminates one of the options that I was just looking at in the top row. Because I was worried about this. But this is impossible, because if I just join these up together quickly, you can see that that loop segment has doubled back on itself very much. It has not only gone south and east, it has then gone north, and it's been a very naughty loop. So it cannot do this. This is not right. So in fact, we now have to think about how to create an efficient loop. And the way we're going to create an efficient loop, I'm just looking at how long I've had on the video so far. I'm not going to beat Thomas's time, even though I now suspect Thomas didn't notice that there was an efficient loop. Come on, Simon, use your brain. What does this mean? Well, no, it doesn't mean that, does it? I was about to say it could never come up there, but that's not true, because I've ruled out that option, but actually it could go that way. So maybe I still have to rule out this option in order to actually get this done. Alright, look, it can't come up there. That is definitely true, because if it comes up there and goes 2 across, it hits something it can't do. If it goes 1 across, we know it must enter row 1 again, and it couldn't be efficient. So that is an inefficient. That is impossible. So that cell is now impossible. Right, let's come back to this one then. Was there a better way that I could eliminate this option? So if it does this, right, here's an interesting thought. Because this end of the loop has to go efficiently, it must immediately go over there. We can't have it going this way and then this way. We're introducing 2 loop segments of inefficiency before it gets to this border, and we're not allowed to do that. So it's got to go there, it's got to go there, then it comes out. It's not broken yet, is it? It is broken now. Okay, so it's easier to break. It's much simpler to break. Once we know that the loop has to be efficient, this is impossible. That's lovely. That is absolutely lovely. So now that loop segment's out. That means, oh, what's it doing now then? Okay, right. So now it can't come up there, because if it comes up there, it has to go across 2, because it can't only go up 1, and that's not going to work. It's then going to be trapped. So it never comes up there. So the loop does this, and there we have actually started the puzzle. Although, okay, so now this loop segment has to only go west or south. This loop segment has to only go east or south until it hits the border. But these 3 clues are really annoying. That's really weird, isn't it? That hasn't actually helped me nearly as... It was quite useful. It's eliminated at least... Well, it's got me some loop segment. How do we actually know, then, what the loop does? Is this obvious? Is there something obvious? If you have an efficient loop, I've got a bad feeling that if I get through this puzzle, the comments are going to say, you should just have been able to do this. Oh, this is... Sometimes I wish I wasn't on camera when I almost wish I was on paper and I could sort of sketch it in and then rub it out without having to talk through why I embarked upon such inanity. Are there... Right, maybe there are more cells now that I can eliminate. Because I could never, ever have... I can never have situations where I introduce inefficiency. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so what that means is if this corner is part of the loop, I can't do that, can I? Because to do that wouldn't be to complete this 2 clue. And if I don't complete the 2 clue, that implies that the loop is coming into column, whatever it is, column 11, is it? At some other point. And the nature of that must mean that the loop doubles back on itself and is inefficient. So actually, if it comes there, it must do that, and then that. And then that, and then that. Gosh, it would be hugely powerful if it did this. Although I still can't seem to eliminate. Yeah, so would it... I think again that would imply it must do this. I'm not sure though. There's something. Can we work out where it cuts this boundary? If it's got to go 2. But the product, yeah, okay, this 2 is not quite right, is it? I was wondering whether I could work out where this line had to cut this boundary using the across clues. But no, I can't do that because I don't know whether it does that or whether it does that. And then that continues down. So... or can you... okay, no, maybe it's different. Maybe I can work out when it comes back into column, whatever column that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let me just think about this. So what I'm thinking is, if the loop cannot double back on itself, so it cannot go, yeah, it can't leave, can't go to the left of column 7 and then go back into column 7, because you can see that's a very inefficient loop. It must go smoothly to the right, spend some time in column 11, and then smoothly to the bottom. So it can't do wiggles. We can have no wiggles. And if we can have no wiggles, right, yeah, okay, if we can have no wiggles, the loop must spend all of these clues in its... before it comes in to this column, it must spend all of these clues. And those clues are adding up to 10. So, does that mean that? Is my question. Does that mean that? How could it not mean that? If it crosses into column, whatever column this is, if it crosses into column 6 without having, so if the loop comes over here, comes down here, and crosses into column 6, having not gone down 10, which it wouldn't have done, because here it's only crossed however many boundaries that is to get it down to this level. It's not gone down 10 because we know going down 10 gets it into the bottom row. So if it hasn't gone down 10, the only way it can then achieve going down 10 is to go back over here and doing it. And that's going to cause inefficiency. Yes, all right, this is right. So what we have to do... Yes, okay, so in other words, in order to work out which which column boundary it is, which one of these possible junctions it is that the loop crosses from column, whatever that is, column 7 to column 6, we can add up the final 5 clues, say they have to all be spent before the loop achieves that crossing. We get a 10, which means the loop must have descended all 10 crossings before it crosses back. So it must cross back there. And then we can do exactly the same thing for this junction. So here we've got 9, I think that is. So that means that we must spend 9's worth of crossings downwards before the loop crosses this boundary, which means that is forced. Let me just get rid of all of this circlage at the top. And that means... that's it. Right. Now look at this bottom clue. I've done it. All of a sudden, that one insight has helped me, because now I've got to do that. And now I've spent my, whatever that is, that column 6 clue. That has been used up. So I've got to go up there. Beautiful. Now my column 3, or column, this 3 clue here is used up, so I can do some more things. My 2, this is it, we're away. This 2 clue in this row is now, this is just absolutely brilliant. Stefan, I love puzzles like this, because it turns on its head everything you thought you knew, and there's a trick in it, that if you get the trick, you can suddenly see how to do it, like with some sort of alacrity. Look, this 3 clues done. It's done. We can do some line segments. So now, right, I'll tell you what else we can do. We can cross all these boundaries are now out of bounds because we've spent the clues. We have got this 2 clue is done. So we can exify all of these clues. We've got to drop down. We've got to drop down. We can't be inefficient, so we can never come into the middle again. We know the only crossing is down there, so all of these squares get out of bounds as well. Can't come back on ourselves. Right, we can never come down again into whatever row that is, row 10, because we've spent the clue there. And therefore... well, this 1 clue means one of these clues turns. One of these turns, but I don't think we know which one. Or do we? Let me just stare now. Sorry, I can't see what to do. We were having a really good... We had a really good flurry of activity, which has made me feel better about myself momentarily. So again, in this column, look, we've spent 2 of the three border crossings. So either that's extending, gosh, it's horrible weather, I don't know if you can hear the wind there, or that's extending. Which is slightly weird, because I don't know how we know... alright. Is that possible? That's an interesting question. I think the answer to that must be no. Because if we do that, don't forget we can't do wiggles. No wiggling is allowed in this puzzle. This is not Naked Twister, or indeed any other form of Twister. So what we've actually got to do is go directly. And that's going to spend 4 clues in this row. So, that cell is out of bounds. No joy for you. Now, what does that mean? Don't know. Can I do the same thing here? This 1 clue keeps... Yeah, I can. Yeah, okay, so what you have to realise now is that the borders are getting very constrained. This one clue, if I do that, again, no wiggling allowed. So we have to go straight, and that I think is 4 line crossings, which is too many. Actually, let me just unwind that so that I don't make a mistake. Right, so those come out. Can I do the same thing there? Not quite. No, I can't. I'd have to be efficient, but that's only 3 line segments used, and that's allowed in this row. So, okay. That cell's out of bounds. What about that? Yeah, that doesn't work. This cell's out of bounds because if we if we do that, what's going on? If we do this, then we can't go any further, and that's going to introduce inefficiency. We can't be looping round to connect this segment here to this segment here, and we would have to be looping round. So that's out of bounds. And and the same thing must be true there. This one clue is very powerful actually, because again, I can't create inefficiencies, and I would have to. So that clue is out of bounds. Which, well, what does that mean? Does that mean anything really important? I've very nearly worked out where this one clue goes. I've only got 3 line segments to choose from now in column 1. But unfortunately, I don't know that I actually know. Alright, here's another way of thinking about column 4. Because we can't have doubling back, yeah, this is obvious. Because you can't have doubling back, it's obvious once you start to think about how the loop must flow. Because you can't have doubling back, how could you ever have that as a line segment? That would complete this 2 clue, and you can see that therefore you'd have to have doubling back in order to connect this to this. That's never going to work. So what we must do, now we've entered this column from both sides, we must spend both clues because we can't double back. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so now the loop must go through that cell. Because you can see, I don't know whether it goes that way and down or down here and across, but it does one of those things to enter this cell. Can I do the same thing over here? Yes, the loop has entered column, whatever it is, 8 twice, so it must spend all its clues from these 2 loop segments. We can't have this as a line segment because we'd have to double back into it. So again, it's a 3. Right, we've only got 1 more line segment to take, so those are all forced to be out. Which is interesting and all, but unfortunately I don't think it's quite good enough, is it? What about this cell? Is that cell impossible now? Yeah. Immediately creates double backing, because I have to turn down it's the power of this one clue. You can see to connect these 2. So the moment we together, we have to be doubling back. So that clue is out of bounds. Now, is this one also out of bounds? Yes, absolutely it is. Right. So now that circle there, we've got a sort of the makings of a face that we're creating. That segment has to be the loop. The loop either does that or like that. Now, which one of those is it going to do? I don't know. I wish I'd... Oh, okay. In column 11... Oh, no. I've almost done it. We can't, right, we know we can't do that because then we're going to have doubling back. Whoa, that wouldn't look anything like that. It would look like this. That's not going to work. So actually, that's a line segment. Still, oh, okay, I suppose if it turns there, then this is perhaps interesting. It's not easy to see how this works, is it? Ah, okay. But now we've got a line segment in this column. We're away, aren't we? Because now I can, yeah. So now I can perform the trick we did in row 1 on column 11. So we can ask how many sideways steps, how many border cuts does this loop segment go through before it cuts this boundary? Because we know it can't double back, it must spend all of the clues. So the 1, the 3, the 1, the 2 and the 2 must all be spent, and that is 9. So we must spend 9 clues before we cut this boundary. And I think that is the correct boundary then, isn't it? Because if we get here, if we were to cut there, that would be 10 clues. That's too many clues. We simply couldn't get the loop to this position using only these clues. These would have had to add it up to 10. And if we crossed here, we wouldn't have spent all 9. So we'd have to double back in order to spend the 9. And we know there's no inefficiency. So I think that's forced. Now, what's that done? That means that... hang on, let me think. Oh, no, that's absolutely gorgeous. Oh, Stefan, that is sick. Right, it's sick and simple, which is, I don't know if that's the best sort of logic, but it is beautiful. Right. Okay. So we know that by the time the loop gets to this position, it's coming from this direction. It is not coming from column 1 because there weren't enough clues to get this to column 1 before this border cut was forced. So where do we get to column 1? We need to put a 1 clue in column 1. Well, the only place it'll go now is there. Oh, that's so clever. Wow. Wow. So this is now finished. Has that done us proud or not? Oh, please, 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 please. Is that do it? Please do it. Please do it. Okay, now I'm going to do the same trick with that junction, presumably. Because I can now add these squares up. I've got 9 squares there. So we know that this must spend 9 clues before it crosses that boundary. So that's that's it. Look, that's a boundary. Now this 1 clue is forced. So that must come in there. That must go up. That must do this. This must cross immediately because we've spent the 1 clue. I've spent the 2 clue now in this row. This row is finished. This must come out. So that's 2 of my 3 clues done. This is never reached. Do we now know which way this goes? We probably do. We just can't quite see how to do it. I am building quite a regular loop, which is what I thought was going to happen. Okay, I need to spend a 1 clue in this row. And I can't do it by doubling back over here, so I've got to spend it efficiently there, which forces this. Now this 1 clue is done. So that forces, now this 2 clue can't have a thing. This 1 clue can't have a thing because it's been spent up here. So that all gets, the whole left side gets finished. My 3 clue, is done. So that's got to move up. My 3 clue gets finished. I've not done my 1 clue, so that's got to go up. And there you go. I think that's the puzzle finished. That, I have to say, that is absolutely superb. I didn't beat Thomas's time, but I did explain it as I was going along, and I did absolutely love the puzzle. What I'm fascinated to know is whether I'm presuming that if you did try and do this without using that trick about the loop having to be efficient, I'm guessing that Thomas didn't find that, because if Thomas found that logic, he would have done everything I've done there in 2 minutes probably. So I am presuming that if you try to do this puzzle without learning the trick, it's going to be an absolutely monstrous experience. Now that's what I want to know in the comments. How many of you did this without spotting that there was a restriction on the way the loop had to be built? I'd love to know. I'd love to know whether this is one of these puzzles, which I view as perfect puzzles actually, where if you can have some sort of meta insight in terms of the logic and how it works, you can not breeze through it, but you can at least understand how it's solvable. I wish there were more puzzles like this in the World Championships, actually, because these things, they're vicious. They're vicious and evil. Stefan Leo, take a bow. That was absolutely wonderful. Let me know in the comments how you got on. As I say, I enjoy the comments, especially when they're kind. And we'll be back later. Don't forget to check out gmpuzzles.com. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Happy New Year to you all.